Our week 2 of the Mandalorian season 2 coverage here on the podcast. Joining me today, big Star Wars guy. Last talked to him about hockey in September. We talked a little holy moly, and we talked Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker preview back last December. Pete Consadori is here. Pete, welcome back. How are you?
Hey, Mike. Thanks for having me back. I mean, it's always fun being on the podcast. Now we're talking a little bit Star Wars action here with the Mandalorian.
Yeah, I'll say I was very thrilled with season 1. Premiere last week, I talked about with John Stanko, was fun. What did you think about the premiere?
Yeah, I really like the premiere a lot. I think it was a nice start. I think the introduction of little storylines I think emerged. I think that this is not the last time we see the Marshal in this series. So I think that this is a nice setup to the series. And there was a lot of little things. I don't know if you guys noticed it. I picked up on that were actually nice callbacks to the movies. Really quickly, like the Marshall speeder looks like an old pod racing, turbine engine, almost like Anakin's. It wasn't Anakin's because it was a red turbine instead of a blue one. Also, obviously, Boba Fett's armor is in there. So a nice little callbacks.
Yeah, they are. We do have a nice callback to Mandalorian season 1 in this episode, which we'll get to in just a sec. I'm going to pop the spoiler warning on now so we can dive into Chapter 10 of The Mandalorian, The Passenger. And again, this is your friendly warning. Again, if you have not seen the second episode of the second season of The Mandalorian, also probably I will throw out there if you have not seen the episode, I think season 1, episode 6, The Prisoner. If you've not seen those, come back after you watch them because we're going to spoil a lot of things here. And this is definitely an interesting episode, I think, The Passenger. Not quite as good, in my opinion, as the premiere, but I thought it was still fun.
Yeah, I mean, it was fun, but what was the point of it? Like, I watched it and I get maybe there's like some storylines that they're trying to put up right then and there, but I don't really understand what the storyline behind this like frog woman has to do with anything. I don't know.
I think to me, and we'll get to this point in the episode, I think they had this visual in mind of we're going to put the Mandalorian on an ice planet. We want a big fight with spiders, and we're going to do that, and we just sort of need a vehicle to get us there. I think that was what the frog woman was.
Yeah, but like if you look at the episode as a whole, right, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but like if you look at the episode as a whole, if that episode didn't exist, right, and we just go to chapter, what will be the next one, 11?
Yeah.
Right? If you just go to chapter 11, like I'm curious to see what your thoughts are next Friday, if like chapter 10 was even needed. Because I don't know what exactly chapter 10 accomplished. All it really accomplished to me was, all right, he's traveling to a specific area where he needs to find a contact that has Mandalorians, and yes, the contact is probably this frog woman's husband or whatever like that. But I feel like I don't know. Like the way it ended, it was just like, okay, maybe you can have like the ending be that they actually get to their destination, at least have some resolve. It's just like, we're just going to throw this episode in here.
Yeah, I do think this does feel a bit like a filler episode where like we need to pad the order to 8 episodes and we have enough ideas for 7. So we just throw this one in there, have some visuals that are in there that's interesting. But I do think there was some fun in there. I do think there's also a very heavy Baby Yoda hour, which we did not get much of the child in the premiere.
Yeah, but I mean, even with the child in this one, it just, you didn't really get much about the child, right? So the only thing you got, and I don't know if this has to connect with anything, is that the child likes to eat this frog lady's ass. Like I didn't learn anything. Like I feel like an episode, especially of something of this caliber show, right? The Mandalorian, a successful first season, I would say, and I'm sure you would say the same thing too. Now there's all this hype about the Mandalorian. We had a quarantine. Everyone's like, oh, at least the Mandalorian's coming back. There's a lot of hype. So I can obviously understand if it's not up to the expectations of most. However, I was looking at this objectively, and I'm looking at this episode and I'm going, well, I didn't really learn much from this. Like all it was, hey, there's a contact on a separate, planet. You have to bring some cargo to talk to this contact. And then the whole episode was, we're trying to get there and it just didn't work out. To me, that's not so much filler as not so much story based as it is filler. So like I'm really interested to see what happens in Chapter 11 if we even needed 10.
Yeah, let's get there. Let's start diving into some of the stuff from Chapter 10 here, the passengers. So obviously we pick up. We did not go back to the Boba Fett reveal like John and I thought would be the case last week. We end up getting this trap being set where Mando gets tripped up by a bunch of raiders. He's impressive fighting skills. He kills 2. Third one, they grabs the child. He tricks him with his jetpack. What do you think of that whole sequence?
I think that was a nice little lighthearted sequence, right? I don't think it was anything that I didn't see coming. Like, obviously, the Mandalorian's not just going to be like, yeah, sure, take my jetpack, no problem. Like, obviously, we kind of saw that he was going to manipulate at some point that would either he would chase after the dude, shoot the dude, the little guy, or do something to the jetpack. So I kind of saw it coming, that little mini story arc right there. But it was lighthearted. I laughed. It was a nice little, like, haha, just to get the episode started. It definitely starts with tension, and I wish that tension was brought out throughout the entire episode. Like, that was, like, that beginning part where, like, the child's in danger, right? Something may happen to the child, like, boom, right in the beginning of the season, and it's just taken care of, like, 1, 2, 3. No problem. Like, there's no tension. I mean, the only tension that we get is probably halfway through the episode.
Yeah, we do. That was fun. You get some laughs when you see him basically rig the jetpack to just drop the guy on his head and basically just kill him that way. And then I did love the appearance again of Pell Mott coming back again in this episode. Her bit at the Mos Eisley Cantina was fun.
Yeah, I think her character is going to be huge in this scene. I personally think this is going to be a reoccurring thing where the Mandalorian keeps going back to that same person. That same person is going to still play her tricks. I need money for this, that, the other thing. And it's just going to be kind of like a running gag, I think, throughout the season. Maybe she is more important towards the end of the season than we think. But it seems like she's going to be a liaison, if you will, for the episodes where every episode or maybe every other episode we will see this character and this character guides the Mandalorian some sort of way.
Yeah, this week she guides us to our frog lady, and basically she has to get transported to another planet because she's trying to meet up with her husband. But they can't travel at light speed because it'll destroy the egg she's carrying, which is going to save the species. And I do think 2 things here I think are interesting is, number one, it forces Mando to go slower, which I think, again, it's kind of a reflection of the whole episode, like, let's slow down. But I also think the thing that was more interesting to me is him trying to find a way to communicate, because he knows many languages. You saw last week he knows how to speak Sand People language, but he doesn't understand this character, the Frog Lady. I think that was very fun to watch him try and figure that out.
Yeah, I think that was also kind of one of the weird parts of the episode, because, like, at one point this Frog Lady just knows how to use a broken droid to translate her voice, like, no problem. Like, that was such, like, a plot hole, in my opinion. Yes, it's so small, like, I'm not going to lose sleep over how'd she do it, but, like, just willy-nilly just takes a piece of the droid and is like, I'm going to talk through this like a microphone's going to translate. No problem. I know how to do it. Like, come on. That was so abrupt. It was just like, oh, now I can communicate with you. No problem. The language barrier there between the Mandalorian and I don't know what the species is called, but I'm going to just call her the Frog Lady, is definitely something that's not expected, since the Mandalorian is so versed in other languages, right? And you've seen throughout the season how he's a man of many species, in a sense that he's protecting a lot of species, he's doing jobs for species and stuff like that, and in the Star Wars kind of realm. And then all of a sudden, I don't know how to speak frog, but you can speak Sand People, you can speak Tusken Raider. Like, yeah. Literally just grunting. You can speak that with sign language, but you don't know how to speak frog.
I guess the implication there was sort of like that, like, this was a very endangered species, and it's like her husband, a couple of others that need the eggs to sort of redo the species. And maybe there are not a lot of people, though, to be fair, Pell Mott knows how to speak their language, so I don't know how she knows it, but he doesn't.
Yeah, that's the thing, right? That just, there's a lot of little, this is nitpicky, right? Like, who's sitting here picking this out? But I'm going to pick it out and be like, well, if she can speak it, why can't he learn or something? Maybe because, who knows? Maybe that Frog Lady just chills with her. Maybe this is a character that lives or works with her. I don't know. But I do know that it gives a little bit more tension, but they don't really play to it that much. That's the thing. Like, they could have played into the communication barrier so much more than they really did. I think because they had to throw some action in there as well. It just didn't really seem like it was such a problem when maybe they could have made it a problem.
Yeah, I do feel like having the broken droid, I had completely forgotten was still on the ship until they did the previously on, and they went into the episode. Like that sort of seemed like an easy, like, oh, here's our way to get them to communicate, and sort of like I think that was a little lazy, sort of right that way in there.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's cool that the droid's still there. I think that's really cool. I just didn't like how she just picked it up and in 3 seconds flat was like, oh yeah, I did this, and this. Now, granted, the scene in between, it's implied that the Mandalorian's been sleeping for a while, but I just, I don't know. It just seemed very forced to me. It was like, okay, we need to understand what the frog lady's saying for 5 minutes or less for the audience, so we're just going to throw that in there.
Yeah, they did kind of throw that in there. We do get to that. Before we get there, though, we do have the point where he's traveling below light speed in space, and he gets picked up by 2 Republic ships. It's the first time we've actually seen Republic presence on the show proper, and I did not expect them to be going back to the whole battle at the prison ship in season 1. That was an interesting call to go back there.
Well, I think that it is smart to go back because it's still a continuation of the season. I mean, if you think about a TV show in general, you want to continue off where you left off, like it's one universe, one straight timeline. So I can appreciate that. I also appreciate that it was kind of comical. It was very dry humor where it was almost like hey, can you send us a beacon? And he's like, nah, it's broken. And he goes, well, can you fix it? Can it? It's like we'll wait for you, and it brings. I don't want to call it filler, but like again, it just feels like it brings some time crunch problems where it's not even a time crunch. They just need to fill time, and they're like, okay, we're gonna elongate this part. Like they could have easily went into attack mode after he said, "I don't have a beacon," like, and I'm not gonna send you the ping like that. It didn't have to be drawn out another minute.
Yeah, I think that was sort of a reflection on, like, I think if you remember the sequence in the finale of season 1 where we have the 2 stormtroopers sitting there shooting the breeze for about 3 minutes before we actually get any action in it.
Right.
And they thought, that was fun. Let's try and do this again. But I think without Taika Waititi's cue there, I don't think it helped. I don't think it worked as well.
You know what? I don't mind it if the episode was more meaningful. Like if this was a big episode where we learned a lot, I'd be like, all right, that was a nice little thing to throw in there. It's funny. It's a little comedic relief. It's a little break from all the action, the drama, or whatever, or from learning something, and it gives your brain a break. But like for an episode like this, to me, it's like you're just, I don't know. It's just like the whole episode just had that. Hey, let's just throw something in to for the sake of doing it.
Yeah. Also, a fun fact: one of the X-wing pilots is played by Dave Filoni, who is one of the directors on the series. So fun for them to get him an on-screen role there.
That is a fun fact. I didn't even notice that. Didn't even put 2 and 2 together there.
Yeah, he's the other guy, not the main guy. The main guy is played by an actual actor. Filoni is the second pilot.
I mean, they did a phenomenal job. I actually enjoyed seeing the X-wings.
Yeah,
I think that was a nice touch.
Yeah, it was a nice touch. And anyway, to refresh what happened in the season 1 episode that they referenced several times, basically that's the one where he goes with the bounty hunting crew to break somebody off the Republic prison ship. That's what and then the bounty hunters turn on him. We see him do all these fights in the dark where he's taking them down one by one. And at the end, the Republic blows up the bounty hunting ship and he just gets off scot-free. So it was nice of them to just have him have some consequences for his actions as opposed to just letting him get off scot-free.
I mean, he kind of does anyway.
Yeah, we'll get there. But anyway, like he runs, he gets down to the ice planet, he hides in them, but his ship crashes through, and then we get the fun plot. I think it's the fun Baby Yoda moment of the week is Baby Yoda and trying to eat the eggs the entire episode. That was just so funny.
Yeah, that was. I'm conflicted about the child, and the reason why I'm conflicted is because they were building the child up to be such a force, right? Something that is everyone's looking for. Everything is leading up to this monumental thing. The child, sometimes helped in season 1. This season so far, the child just seems like a dummy. Like it's just like, I just want to eat. Like where did that persona go? Or I don't know if you can call it persona. It's not a person, but like where did that theme go for the child? I don't know if it's a him, but like, are they trying to downplay the child? And then like 3 episodes left in the season, they all of a sudden like stuff starts going down.
I think to me, the thing I would look at is, okay, I don't know when this was written, because I don't know if this was written before Baby Yoda sort of broke out in the modern sense of the show, like when it gets out, it becomes a big social media sensation, or after that, because it was before. Right. You can say, okay, maybe this is part of we're going to kind of, remind he's still a kid, he's just hungry, he wants to eat the eggs, we think it's a funny visual. Or if this is after, say, oh, we had a Baby Yoda moment, we didn't put one in the premiere, so let's have him just try and eat the eggs the whole episode.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. They may be trying to play like, hey, this thing is still a child. Yeah. And I didn't really think of that, obviously I call it the child, but like, I didn't really think of that much because of how important this child was in the first season.
Yeah.
So it's definitely a play. I mean, it's definitely a play that they could go for where, hey, this thing is highly sought out for, very powerful, either in an older age or right now, but it's still a kid. So I can see that.
Yeah, in a sense, that kind of attitude kind of reminds you of, like, I don't know if you're a big Avatar: The Last Airbender guy. It's kind of like what they do with Aang, the Avatar, in the show, because biologically he's 112 years old, but he's frozen in ice. The start of the series, he's frozen in iceberg for 100 years. So he comes out a 12-year-old kid, and he's still a kid, but he's the most powerful being in the world. So they do have moments where he tries to be a kid, where he's like doing goofy things, but he still has like these big moments.
Right, but those big moments were not far and few between.
Yeah.
Right, like you knew the power that he possessed, even though he was just a kid, and you see how he's learning to be responsible. Now, granted, the child biologically is older. I think it's like an insane age compared to what it looks like, but it's, I think, comparatively to Aang's character in The Last Airbender, it's probably a younger development age than 12. If that makes sense. Like, it's still acting like a baby, maybe.
Yeah, well, I mean, Yoda himself was like about 900 years old by the time he dies. So I think the child being 50 is basically like a 3-year-old.
Right. So I can see that. I can see maybe that, the child can't harness its power, if you will, or understand what it's doing. The first season, when things do go down, the child does it as like an act of like, oh, I have to help. So like, it's weird. It's like the child kind of knows like, oh, I need to help. And then now it's acting like it doesn't know to stop eating eggs. Like I don't know. I'm very conflicted.
Yeah. Well, anyway, we continue that storyline. We have the sequence where the frog lady gets basically hacks the droid, tells him we have to get moving because like my species will die if we can't get these eggs over there. And then we see later she sneaks out of the ship, goes to like a hot spring bath, and Baby Yoda starts more trouble because he's hungry again, eats a baby spider, and then starts this big spider attack, which I think was a very cool visual like sequence for like the last third of the episode.
Yeah, no, that was definitely a very cool scene and a very, like you said, visual event, right? You have all these spiders. It kind of reminded me a little bit of Harry Potter when Ron, like spiders and all that happens. It kind of reminded me of that. Obviously, the spiders didn't look like regular spiders as they did in Harry Potter, or even if we see in real life, they're more alien-esque spiders. So it definitely gave it a little fresher look. But that's what it reminded me of, and it definitely looked cool. I think it was a nice tension moment where their lives were in danger because Baby Yoda, the child, whatever you'd like to call it, started this trouble because it was hungry and it couldn't eat the egg, so it went to this like pod looking thing, almost looked like a flower was opening up, but it was really a egg for a newborn baby like spider. And then the whole family comes out and it's just spiders all over the place. It is definitely a very good scene. I like the fact that the Mandalorian needed help, right? And I'm sure we'll get to this in a second, that he couldn't do it all on his own because his ship was pretty much kaput. So it was visually very, very nice. Kind of saw the action coming, except for maybe the flamethrower scene, because like he's just picking off spiders. Like we kind of knew what else he was going to do. A couple explosions too, using some little mini detonators. So that was pretty cool. But overall, probably the better part of the episode.
Yeah, I think this is what I was talking about earlier. I said they sort of had this idea of like, we want this big spider fight where he's gonna be chasing spiders, be chasing him. He's gonna have to deal with a big army. Things, some big, some tiny, some like ginormous. And I think they sort of had the idea, but we just didn't have like a first 2/3 of the episode sort of justify why we got the spider fight.
Yeah, I just again, like I just didn't understand. I understand where it came from. Obviously, you could see what the start of the conflict is, and I get that. There's no doubt about what happened. The child ate a baby spider. The spider family got woken up from that for however they knew. Maybe the mother spider can sense it, and they start attacking the people that killed one of the babies. I get it. That start and finish. I got it. Like that's perfect. It's just like you said, the first 2/3 of the episode were just getting there. Like we just need to get there, and then at the end, we're not going to have any sort of explanation of anything. Just watch the next episode.
Do you think this episode plays better if this episode is like 27 minutes instead of 41?
I just don't think it needs to be in the thing at all. Like I honestly feel like maybe, like you said, was right. They had ideas for 7 episodes, but needed to fill 8. Like this, I promise you could probably watch chapter 11 and only need maybe 5 minutes of chapter 10 to understand what's happening in chapter 11. Right? All you need to know is that there's a contact that the Mandalorian's trying to get to find other Mandalorians. That's all you need to know. The rest of the episode, you don't learn a thing.
Yeah, we don't. Anyway, we do get this fight. The Mandalorian's getting overwhelmed. The ship gets overrun by the spiders, and then it looks like he's about to get takes off, and then another gigantic adult spider crashes down the Razor Crest. Looks like it's all over, and then surprise, surprise, our 2 rebel pilots in the beginning of the series, New Republic pilots, save the day by basically just blasting all of the spiders to death with the X-Wing. So an anticlimactic finish to that fight to me.
Yes, but it also shows that the Mandalorian can't really do everything. Mandalorian kind of has this persona to him that it's this incredible bounty hunter that's a great, in the first episode, the Marshal keeps calling him a great killer, right? And then he can't defeat spiders. Like, think about that for a second. Like, he can go against a lot of different things. He went against a crate dragon, which was, like, huge, right? And he goes into the belly of this dragon, which, again, kind of saw it coming, and he explodes it by himself, and he's the savior of the day, but, like, he can't take care of spiders. And the New Republic guys have to come with their X-Wings and help him, and the New Republic guys pretty much just was like, you can figure it out, we're leaving. Like, they just didn't care. Like, it almost kind of gave the impression of like Mandalorians aren't that special.
Yeah, that's true. And we get to them, and then he comes out, and they're like, "Hey, we know you. You were on the prison ship." He's like, "Am I under arrest?" And they're like, "You should be, but you helped us get 3 high priority prisoners under arrest, and you did some other good stuff. So we're gonna let you walk, but we're not helping you anymore. You're on your own." Which I think a little bit of a cop out, but also fair. They didn't be complete nice guys because this guy is still not the greatest human being on the planet.
Oh yeah, I mean, I wouldn't call it a cop out as much as he kind of had it coming.
Yeah,
I mean, he's a bounty hunter. He works for no one. He gets a bounty, he goes for it. It doesn't matter what side it is. I don't think bounty hunters ever really got a good rap in the Star Wars franchise anyway, because of the sense of they didn't have a side, right? They just kind of took a job and did what they had to do. So I think personally, it was a good way that the X-Wing pilots ended it. It kind of shows that they don't take anything from anyone anymore, especially from defeating the Empire, because defeating the Empire is not too far prior to the Mandalorian series, if I'm not mistaken. So, it shows that they have this sense of confidence, like, no, we run this galaxy now. We don't worry about bounty hunters or the Empire anymore.
Yeah, the show itself said 5 years after the Return of the Jedi. I mean, we saw some of the flashbacks last week from Timothy Oliphant's character, Cobb Barth. We saw some of the stuff that happened right after the second Death Star blew up. So I think the official timeline is 5 years.
Super recent.
Yeah.
Right, super recent. It's not like it's 100 years. It's super recent where they have their new, the New Republic, whatever it's called, and they are, hey, we run this now. Like, I don't care what you are.
Yeah, basically at this point, like, we're still about 30 years out from the Force Awakens. Yes, correct.
I don't think the First Order is around right now in the Mandalorian story arc.
Yeah. Little Ben Solo is probably about a year old at this point.
Probably.
Yeah. So anyway, that's pretty much the episode. I think we're both agreeing here. I think episode 1 was better.
Oh, so much better. And within the first 10 minutes, you see Boba Fett's armor. Like, just that alone, I was like, oh, this is going to be a great season because, like, they're going to just keep playing back to old Star Wars movies and all this stuff. And, like, even his speeder, like I was talking about, was an old pod racer turbine. It wasn't Anakin's, again, because the color scheme is wrong, but it was, like, the same exact type of turbine. So, like, there was a lot of different little things you could pick up on and go, oh, this he bought them from this and that. I bought the armor. I need the armor back. You got to help us. This big kind of thing. And also the episode created a relationship that I feel like we're going to see later. Like, I don't think that episode meant nothing. This episode to me meant nothing. All I needed was those first 5 minutes, or not even the first 5 minutes, because they had the fight sequence in the desert. But, like, let's say the second 10 minutes where we know there's a contact that may know where other Mandalorians are, you need to get there. But here's the catch. You got to bring this dude's wife over. Okay. No resolve. It's not like if they would have ended the episode, like if they would have made this like a 57-minute episode like the first one was, and they would have ended the episode where they finally get there, and like, as cliche as this sounds, he gets to the contact, and the contact's like, the Mandalorians are here. And then you see, like, video of the Mandalorians, like, being themselves, and then it just cuts to black. Yeah. You know, okay, like, at least there's some resolve. At least, okay, they know there's no we know now there's more Mandalorians out there. It's not just a wild goose chase that this particular Mandalorian's going through. Let's now I can look forward to the next episode. This was like, oh, all right, they just fell asleep in the Razor Crest, and okay, I guess we're waiting until Friday.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good episode where one of the big things is your character ends up sleeping for part of the episode.
You know what, though? That may also show a little bit of character development with the Mandalorian. Yeah. Right? Again, like I said, the Mandalorian was all about, like, helping everyone, can do anything. And for some reason, this episode, he was very defeated. Yeah. On a lot of things. And he's like, okay, I guess we got to do it. Like, I don't know if that's the character development. Maybe he's getting annoyed with the child, right? Maybe they're trying to do like a parent-child kind of thing with, like, hey, you love your kids, but sometimes they annoy you kind of thing. I don't know. It was a very weird dynamic, and I'm hoping that this wasn't for nothing. I hope that this was actually something to set up something maybe 2 or 3 episodes down the line, right? To show maybe that the Mandalorian's getting fed up with the child, or it doesn't have the same kind of, like, drive anymore. I hope there's something that this episode did for us, except for, say, there's a new contact. To me, I don't look into it that much because I feel like the Mandalorian's just going to still, like, kick ass, excuse my language, and just do what he has to do throughout the whole season anyway. And this was, like you said in the beginning of the podcast, we just need to fill an 8th episode because we only wrote for 7.
Yeah, it's like I have 2 final thoughts on this. Is number one is obviously I don't think we're going to get any major characters from this really popping up again. We'll probably see the Frog Lady next episode, but, like, I would not put my money on anybody in here showing up in the finale. That's besides Mando the Child. That's my first point. And the second one is I do think that, like, this does kind of feel like, I don't know how much of a lost guy you are. There were sort of episodes where there were, like, storylines where concentrated, like, oh, like, this is happening back at the camp, and it's fun. You have to go with the characters, but you're not really advancing the story. This reminds you sort of like a very divisive episode, like where Hurley starts the Dharma van. But in this version, like, they would not have been able to start the van. They would just need to get a tow. Like, that's basically what this episode ended up being.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I hate, because there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the Star Wars franchise. I hate to do this, but to very loosely compare it to episode 8, I feel like this was The Mandalorian's episode 8. Now, I know that the Disney trilogy is not well liked in the Star Wars community, but I feel like at least The Force Awakens and The Rise of Skywalker actually had something going on story-wise, and just 8 was just all over the place. And they just need to fill a movie. Yeah. Like I feel like you can watch episode 7 and 9 and skip 8, you probably still will understand what's going on. Except for maybe a quarter of the movie that you need to see just to connect some plot lines. But, like, again, I hate to loosely compare this. I feel like this is The Mandalorian's Episode 2 is the Mandalorian's episode 8 of the trilogy, the Disney trilogy.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll get a better episode next week. Hopefully we'll start getting a little further movement on this plot point, because we definitely have not moved very much from where we were at the end of last season.
Yeah, I'm not concerned. I feel like possibly maybe, like you said, we need to fill 8 episodes. I hope this is the only episode they had to fill and they had 7 written and not 6 or 5, because that would be very frustrating.
Yeah.
I understand that there is, again, a lot of high expectations because of season 1 was so good. Granted, there were some slow parts in season 1 as well. But again, I feel like I was always learning something about the character, or learning something about the child, or learning something about the environment around where they were. This was just very blah. It was like, we are going to show you how they're going to get to this planet, throw a couple spiders in there, and we're still not going to show you who the contact is. What if it was like, they threw something in there? Like, they definitely could have thrown, like, the contact was like a past Star Wars character. Like, boom, you end the episode there. They were going nowhere with this. And I feel like they're not going to do it again. I feel like there's going to be a good rest of the season, because the director is great. The writers have been great so far. Again, season 1 through season 2, episode 1. I can't see episode 3 being as bad as episode 2. And it's not even a terrible episode. I just feel like it was just very blah. It was like, okay, it's just there.
Yeah, I'm trying to look up who directed this episode, because usually the episode's director plays a big role in what the episode ends up looking like. I think, if I'm not mistaken, was this a Peyton Reed episode?
That I'm not sure. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't go that in depth when it comes to the production, right? I just kind of, I'm very, I don't want to say objective, but I'm very like, I'm just going to watch what's on screen. I'm going to make my opinion there. Yeah. I really don't, I don't have the information about who wrote it, who directed it, but everything up to this point was fun. So like, I don't know what happened here.
Yeah, I did look it up. It was a Peyton Reed directed episode. So, and he's the guy behind Ant-Man. So you figure, okay, maybe he tried to get some of the Ant-Man vibe with the spider stuff, and I don't think it worked.
Maybe. I mean, who directed episode 1 of season 2?
Yeah, I'm checking right now, because this was him, and Favreau himself directed episode 1.
Okay.
Yeah.
So maybe it was a director issue. Same thing with like episode 8, right? The director changed.
Yeah.
So he tried taking in his own storyline, so that it's a possibility. Again, to loosely compare it to episode 8 of the Disney trilogy, the directors did change, and you saw the storyline take a U-turn real quick. So that is a possibility too. It's just the director's creative thinking just didn't flow well with what the overall season or the overall theme of Mandalorian was or is.
Yeah, well, I'm confident we're getting another good episode next week. Episode 3, and we're doing that on the podcast next weekend. Pete, thanks for all the time. I really appreciate it. Before I let you go, how can you follow on social media and keep us on the stuff you're up to?
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm hoping to, just a little preview in 2021 to start a podcast on my own. I'd love to have you on it. Just talking about random stuff, trying to have a good old time, very lighthearted kind of content. So be on the lookout for that. But you can follow me on Twitter at PJ Consadori29. I'm usually doing a lot of retweets, a lot of hockey. So you'll definitely get your news there if you're not following some of the bigger hockey pages.
All right, Pete. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Mike.